guys, welcome to another episode of the Range Time Podcast. My name is Isaiah.
And Boaz.
And today we have an interesting topic. You guys knew exactly what the title was going into this. How to stop airsoft from dying. Now, what do we mean by that? Is airsoft dying currently? Not really, but yes, but it could grow faster.
Well, I would like to ask you a question because the term airsoft dying is such a vague term.
Yes.
What exactly do you mean by that? Because what I have in mind about airsoft dying might be different from your definition,
Yes,
or even you.
As a viewer.
Yeah.
So my definition of like airsoft dying, right? I always view hobbies as a continual need to grow. If a hobby doesn't have any means to expand itself or to grow larger than what it currently is, then it is going to become stagnant and die. Right? Because again, with anything stagnant, right, that's going to remain still, it's not moving anywhere. You're not going to be getting newer members into the hobby. You're not going to be attracting newer crowds. It's just going to stay in one area. And at a certain point, that's a finite amount of people that live there, right? You can't be relying on the same community over and over again. Not that the airsoft community is like small. Again, there are a lot of us, but it is a niche hobby.
Yeah, so I think what you have in mind is pretty similar to what I have in mind.
Okay.
I guess if I were to sum it up in one phrase is like the death of a hobby or death of airsoft is that it loses its cultural relevance.
Yeah.
So it's no secret, right? As industry people, as you and I, we both work in the airsoft industry.
Yeah.
Our biggest goal is to push the idea or the hobby of airsoft into the mainstream, right?
Yes.
Like that's kind of what we want.
Yeah.
We want the end goal, I guess you would say our evil plan, or our evil master plan is to
Get airsoft in mainstream.
have as many typical American families as possible, with airsoft guns, or at least have experienced.
We want to get to a
Airsoft.
point
Yeah.
where whenever we tell someone like, oh yeah, we play airsoft, people aren't going to look at us and ask, what's that?
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, everyone will know what that means. So yeah, that's something that we always talk about in the wider hobby
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to like being able to grow and expand, like how airsoft is played now, right? There are many different ways that you can go ahead and play airsoft, right? There are, your casual walk-on fields that you pay your entry into, play for the whole day, however many hours they may be open for, and that's pretty much about it, right? There are also guys that play in their backyards, but that in itself too actually opens up an opportunity. If you're living in a metropolitan area, like again, Los Angeles, Cali, right? Or if you're living even in some places in NorCal, I would say even, again, just any major metropolitan area, odds are there is going to be an airsoft field relatively close to you, I would say, or at least you're surrounded by enough people that you have similar interests, right? Enough for them to generate a field for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say at the very minimum, like a lot of paintball fields
Yeah.
will generally have airsoft available for you to play with.
And I think that's how a lot of people ultimately got like exposed to airsoft, right? Because if you're offering like play for both paintball and for airsoft, right, it doesn't take much for a paintball to just, as they're lining up, right, trying to go into the field, or they see across the map like, oh man, those are some realistic looking paintball guns. And
Yeah.
oddly enough, they ask the ref, what are those? And it's an airsoft gun, right? That's how a lot of us ended up getting switched over to airsoft from paintball.
Actually, I got into airsoft because of the news.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so like in the early 2000s when I was like a little kid, there was like a news report of airsoft guns coming to the US market. And so,
Oh.
in typical news fashion, they try to scare everybody.
Oh.
And they're like,
oh, these
oh,
are
like,
because they're dangerous?
yeah.
Is that what they're trying to-
So,
Oh.
they had like
Damn.
police involved, and they're like, oh, like there's this new thing called airsoft. And like we should like not have it because it looks too close to like a real gun. And so they had like an interview with like a police officer or
Yeah.
something, and they're like, oh, like here's a real gun, here's an airsoft gun. Like how can you tell? Like, you can't tell.
I love the juxtaposition of like I can imagine little Boaz watching TV right on the news being like, oh, these guns are so dangerous, police, you can't even tell the difference, and you're just there like, dude, tell me where I can buy them.
No, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, like they had like B-roll of like teenagers playing airsoft in their backyard,
Uh-huh.
and they're using like clear plastic like springers and stuff, and like the spring-powered shotguns.
Like the Walmart
and stuff like
special.
that. Yeah, the Walmart special, or like back in the day, like Sports Authority or Big Five specials,
Mhm.
like low-power AGs. They're playing in the backyard, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And they were wearing paintball masks. Like,
I love how
I was like, yo, this is sick.
I love how you're saying that they were showing footage of them playing in their backyards with face masks. I'm like, that sounds like a grand old time. That sounds exactly what you're supposed to
Oh
do.
no, absolutely. Yeah.
This is so dangerous. And watch as they safely protect their face. And
Well,
play their private property.
I mean, it's a news story, so it's not
Of
meant for
course.
kids.
Of course.
If a kid would watch it, they would think that it's the coolest thing in the world, and it is. But if you're like 50-year-old Nancy, and you have grandchildren or something like that, you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, like this is terrible.
Yeah, my kid's gonna get shot.
Yeah. It's the news, so they want you to drink the Kool-Aid, so.
No, I totally get it.
Yeah.
I think though we are pretty fortunate that like we actually do have, because again, we do live in a metropolitan area. We live in SoCal where again, we have a plethora of fields that are readily available to us. But it is a little harder for, say, like, again, someone who is out in maybe somewhere in the Midwest or somewhere where there's just not a whole lot of people, where, like you said it best earlier, right, where your closest neighbor might be 30 minutes away drive, right? So in those situations, what advice would you give for someone like that to go ahead and help get Airsoft started in an area like that?
Well, I would say this. In our experience, like airsofting outside of our immediate area, for example, like our not last BB Wars, but a BB Wars we did in Northern California, US Airsoft Field. Yeah, BB Wars Coastal Front hosted at US Airsoft Field. It's up in Anderson, California, which is right next to Redding.
Yeah.
In other words, translation, it's like low-key kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like the closest metropolitan area would be Sacramento. That's like almost 2 hours away. But people straight up will make the 2-hour drive to play Airsoft.
Yeah, it's insane.
Or even every year, right? Like in Texas, D14 Airsoft. Yeah, there's people that would drive from like Oklahoma into Texas to play Airsoft. And
even within Texas too, like that's like from one part of Texas to another. It's not like California, right, where for the most part things are kind of centralized. Like Texas, definitely from what I've seen, it feels like you going from anywhere, it's gonna be a long ass drive.
Yeah, it is long, but again, like that's kind of the mentality. Like I think the difference between city folk and people that live in a more like
the country,
less urbanized, I don't even say country, just a more like less urbanized area. From my experience, from like talking to friends that live out in those places, and like again, experience from BB Wars and different airsoft events that we've held, is that people are actually way more inclined to make a drive to do something.
Yeah.
So like they're already used to driving 45 minutes plus to go to a Walmart.
It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, so it's not a big a deal. Whereas when we in Southern California, like we live in a metropolitan area, like making a 30-minute drive anywhere to us seems like a big chore. So there is a difference.
Yeah, it's a different mindset.
Different mindset, yeah. But to answer your question, I would say if you are not in a metropolitan area, the easiest way to play Airsoft is literally just your backyard. Now, it's a caveat.
Yeah.
It's a big caveat. So this only works is if you own land or you own property next to your house. So there are a lot of people out there that will own a house and have surrounding property. So if it is your private property and you let your authorities know, like your local town police department say, hey, like me and my friends, like on Saturdays at this time, like we're gonna be playing with airsoft guns, and like just let you know, we're not playing with like real guns or whatever.
Yeah.
In the event that someone does call the police on you, which that will happen, it's not a matter of.
I feel like that's just a matter of when, honestly.
Yeah, they will call the police on you. So that way, when the police come out, they're not going to be all like super high strung, with their guns out telling you to.
Or I mean, if you let them know ahead of time, like if someone makes a call, like they driving on the freeway, right? They see someone, I don't know, just an example. They see someone playing in their backyard or on their own private land or private property. They see what looks like kids playing with guns. If they get freaked out and call the police, if you've already let police and local authorities know what you're going to be doing in your backyard on your private property, they can just have that on record, right? And they'll say, oh, okay, no, don't worry about it. It's so-and-so.
No, they're still going to have to show up.
I mean, they'll probably send someone, but they're not going to be showing up like in like droves of like SWAT cars or anything.
Yeah. And of course, the most important thing is you need the orange tip.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Orange tip on your airsoft guns, that way everyone knows, whether it's your neighbors or the police especially, if you are playing on your private property, right? Now, when they do show up, they're like, it's easier for them to be like, okay, like these are not real guns.
Yeah.
But again, this only works if you live outside of a metropolitan area, if you're living more out in the countryside and you own a house with property.
Yeah.
So if you were to do this, let's say like in the LA area, and you do this in your backyard, you're more than likely going to have the police show up, and they're not going to be.
They're not going to be anywhere near as forgiving.
Yeah, they're not going to be very understanding of what you're trying to do. Now, I think, Isaias, maybe what you wanted me to go ahead and share about was like maybe like my history doing.
I was gonna allude to that at some point, but I wanted to go in and like get more of like, okay, what would be like the first steps, right? Obviously, you've been able to find out like who we are or what Airsoft is in general, and you want to order yourself an Airsoft gun, great. I would say the first step before anything would actually be to go ahead and introduce your friends to it. Here's the thing, every kid, I mean, I don't know about every kid, but majority of like youngsters, right? We all enjoy video games. We all enjoy like guns to a certain extent. Maybe you have experience hunting, right? If you're living in more rural areas, you do hunting as a hobby or as a means of survival. Airsoft is not necessarily too far off from that hobby as well. Again, a lot of people, especially in a few kids that I met out when we went to Coastal Front, some of them actually were hunter enthusiasts or did like crossbow or like bow and arrow stuff, right? And then they just transitioned over to airsoft.
Oh yeah, because it's an outdoorsy hobby, so it translates very easily. Like you're able to cross-pollinate very well. But one thing I like to add is the idea of us using an airsoft gun and shooting another player with an airsoft gun. That is not as, I guess you would say, popular, or that's not its most widespread use of airsoft guns. In fact, one statistic that really kind of blew my mind is that the majority of airsoft guns sold in America will never see an airsoft field.
Interesting.
And the reason why they would want to buy an airsoft gun in the first place is they treat it like it's a toy gun. I mean, I guess you would say technically they are toy guns,
but it's more of a collector's piece at that point, right?
Not just that, they're primarily used to shoot cans and shoot targets in their backyard.
Okay.
So that's a way more accessible hobby, whereas you don't have to buy a ton of gear, a ton of extra stuff, right, to hit the field. Because you're not, if you buy, let's say you buy an airsoft gun, you're not gonna be able to just hit the field immediately.
Yes.
Right?
There are some other pieces of equipment that you're going to need.
Exactly. So if you buy, let's say, an airsoft rifle, for example, this beautiful MGC4 Mark II.
Available now, right?
Yeah, available now. Right? This gun will not come with a battery.
No, you have to go and buy everything
and a
separately.
charger. You need eye protection. Most airsoft fields, they won't even allow you with only eye protection. You have to have face protection, right? Then you're gonna need a certain amount of BBs.
It's a whole shopping of essentials.
Exactly. So it is a bigger investment to do that. And so I think a lot of people, whether or not they want to invest that much, or maybe they might not have that kind of disposable income to do that.
That's fair.
Right? Most people, they still think that airsoft guns like these are wicked cool, which they are.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. But they don't want to invest that much into the hobby. At the end of the day, the simplest application is just you buy this, you buy battery charger,
whatever propellant or power source,
whatever you need for that. Yeah. And then maybe a couple sets of safety glasses, and then you just hit cans and targets right in your backyard.
You're shooting in your backyard.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the most accessible, and it makes the most sense. I think because we grew up with airsoft fields literally half an hour away, or less. I literally, at one point, I lived 2 minutes away from Tac City.
Yeah.
Our local CQB field, right? We're so spoiled by that. We think that this is all there is to the hobby, but actually, majority of airsofters do not play airsoft in the traditional sense. If that makes sense.
Okay, so my thing with that, I'm convinced. I've actually met several of them come into the actual walk-in store as well. Guys that were more enthusiasts on the side of just collecting or plinking targets in their backyard. Do you think though that in itself is maybe something that's contributing to the fact that airsoft isn't expanding? Because if it's something that you're only playing in your backyard, you're not really going out to the fields and connecting with the community as a whole or as a large group. Do you think that maybe can contribute to or hinder the expansion of airsoft that we're trying to achieve?
No, I would say airsoft as a hobby, I think the problem is a lot of people, we have a very narrow view of what airsoft is. So like I said before, our view or our version of airsoft, when we refer to airsoft, is the idea of us taking airsoft guns, going to a field, right?
Yeah, survival games.
Yeah, shooting each other. Yes, that is a definition of airsoft. However, that cuts out a big chunk of what we would call the market.
Sure.
Right. So the majority of airsofters in the US, right, they don't play airsoft at an airsoft field. They're shooting targets in their backyard. That is still very much an aspect of the hobby. Even when I first picked up my very first airsoft gun at airsoftgi.com, right, it was a tan G&G combat machine. What was I doing with it for the majority of the week? Yeah, I would be shooting cans and balloons and stuff in my backyard, right? And I would play with it in my room, not shooting it, but I'll be practicing reloads and practicing pieing the corner and feeling like I was a cool Call of Duty character. That's what I did majority of the week. Every now and then, every 3 months, I would go to an airsoft field and play.
But that's the thing,
Yeah.
though. You are kind of like breaking that exception, though, because like you said, majority of like airsoft guns
Mhm.
wouldn't, see the field,
Yeah.
right? You're already not part of that demographic, though, because you're actively going to the field
Yeah.
when you can.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like the guys that don't go to the fields like at all, or just not by choice necessarily,
Yeah.
but because they just don't have the fields readily available to
Yeah. So again, there's different ways to view the hobby. So what I'm saying is, because I happen to live right,
In a metropolitan area.
in a city urban area, right, that I have easy access to an airsoft field, which is why I was able to go. But what I was telling you is that there are multiple aspects to the hobby, right? So our definition of like, oh, like, is airsoft going to lose its cultural relevance? I'm a bit more optimistic about it as far as how airsoft will grow. I don't necessarily think that what we do in airsoft is necessarily going to be the mainstream thing, but I'm just saying that in order for us to promote the growth of airsoft as a hobby, we need to expand our viewpoint of what it means, as an airsoft as a hobby. Like, for example, like overseas, right? If you go to like Hong Kong, Taiwan, like those kind of countries, a big part of airsoft is actually competitive shooting. Yeah, because they're not allowed to have real guns. So anybody that wants to compete in airsoft, like as an athlete, they will do like IDPA, or I think even IPSC internationally, right? They'll honor airsoft as a platform.
Yeah.
So we even talked with some older videos. Our buddy Stephen Wang, who is a professional sponsored competitive shooter.
Very cool guy, though.
Very, very awesome guy. He would tell us that he would have an airsoft high cap, but basically built like all the way up, so that way when he makes frequent business trips to Hong Kong and Taiwan and those areas, he can still keep his shooting skills sharp and compete in those events with airsoft guns. So again, that's another hobby aspect of airsoft. It's not necessarily us shooting each other with airsoft guns. So even people that are in a rural area or somewhere where they're not easily able to access a field, whether or not you live in Southern California, maybe you just can't afford to go to the field regularly, like how I used to do, right? Or let's say you live in like Nebraska and there are no airsoft fields, right? What I'm saying is, if you have a backyard, if you have a garage, if you have, like a big open piece of private property that you can play airsoft in, you can. It does not necessarily have to be like a 3v3 team deathmatch or whatever. It doesn't have to be that way, right? You can literally just grab a group of guys. You guys can run shooting competitions with each other, right? Or if you guys just want to kick back, hang out, like mess around with some toy guns and just shoot cans and targets in your backyard, like that's a very acceptable form of the hobby. In fact, it's actually really fun to do.
Okay, that's fair. I get that there are people who are willing to do it. However, I will also add that there is a very large portion of that said community that really wishes they could play out on regular fields.
Okay.
Even they'll message us directly, like ask us like, hey, when are you guys coming out to the nearest state right near that has an actual airfield? They'll make the drive out, right? Or we'll see guys all the time from our streams and commenting, oh man, I wish I lived out in Cali so we can have like an actual field to play at. So for guys like that, right, what would you suggest like for them to go ahead and get started in, like that want to actively play but don't have a field to them? What would say you? Because I know you have that experience of starting like kind of an impromptu field.
Yeah. Well, this is not legal advice.
This is not legal advice.
Not legal advice.
This is different times.
Yeah. So best thing I could recommend is if you want to play airsoft, like I guess you would say force on force, right?
Yes.
So if you want to play like you shooting each other with airsoft guns. Yeah. First thing you need to do is you need to find a piece of private property, not public, private property, like away from public view. That's why I was saying that if you own a house and there's an attached piece of property to it, right, that might be an option. Number two, you need to call your local law enforcement before you play. You need to call them and just say, hey, me and my friends, like we're gonna play a game of airsoft like in our backyard, like our 3-acre backyard, right?
3 acres is a lot of like square footage. You can do a lot with that.
Yeah. Some people own that much property. Yeah. Like they do, so say, hey, like we have a 3-acre piece of property attached to our house. This is the address right, of the house. And me and like a few other guys are gonna show up with airsoft guns, like they're replica firearms to shoot, like little plastic BBs. We just want to let you know that we're gonna be doing this, so that way if anyone calls the police on us at this address or this address, so that you guys get the heads up. Okay. So if they say, okay, that's cool, that's fine, then like go for it. They say, hey, that's not allowed, don't do it.
Then don't do it. Yeah.
Then
if you're gonna do it,
that.
If they're saying don't do it, then you're gonna end up just causing some problems, right?
Yeah.
And that just kills any and all chance of airsoft as like force on force style
Yeah.
games or just survival games.
Yeah.
We'll call it that.
But I'm specifically saying you need to do this before you play. It's not like, oh, well, no one's gonna see, so like it's fine, let's do it. Like, no, that's a terrible idea. Do not do that. Like, if you do that, you are actively working against the growth of our hobby, and it's gonna continue to push lawmakers and stuff to try to ban airsoft.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
What would you say your experience was like doing this?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I would say give the viewers like some context too, because like
yeah. So this was in the late 2000s. So again, different era, different time period where people were a little bit more understanding, I guess, less high strung,
Sure.
if you will.
Yeah.
So my very first experiences playing airsoft was literally when I would go camping,
Mhm.
like with my family, like with our church group and stuff. So me and my friends, we would bring our airsoft guns, and in the middle of like the woods where no one was at, we would play airsoft. They still all had their orange tips on them. Like, we were too young to try to like trick them out. Actually, I don't even think our guns could take any
So
aftermarket.
it's the G&G?
No. This was way before. It was like low power age.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we would play airsoft that way, and eventually it evolved to me meeting my friend Taylor, head tech Taylor, in my high school, and we actually met because I was wearing an airsoft GI shirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah. At school.
Was he the one that like stopped you? He's like, oh, that's a cool shirt.
Yeah. It's like, oh, airsoft GI, sweet. And so we started talking, and he was telling me that right next to our high school was a tree farm. And so it was a piece of property. It's a very linear piece of land.
How big?
I don't know. It's pretty freaking big though.
Okay.
It's like almost like a half a mile long. Like,
Damn. Yeah.
No, it's a very long field.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically like railroaded to like kind of meet each other like somewhere in the middle.
Was it an active railroad with a train?
No.
Oh, thank God.
So it was a tree farm, had a railroad like track kind of like on this like berm area, this
Mhm.
raised area. There was like a middle ground, and then there was like this ravine area on the right hand side. So there were a few different ways that you could play, but eventually everyone just meets in the middle, right? So he says he plays there, and I was like, whoa, like isn't that kind of dangerous? And basically he was saying that he got in contact with the owner of the property. He got a written signed permission from the owner saying that it was cool, and he let our local police department know that on Saturdays that we would be playing, and they were cool with it.
Damn. Sounds so fun.
What was even crazier is that people on Saturday mornings, they would like hike by or bicycle by or run by, jog by, and they were all just cool with the fact that we're just like sitting there with like airsoft
A bunch
guns.
of kids with a bunch of airsoft guns.
Yeah. And at this point, like we did not have orange tips on, which was even like dicier.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it was a different time. People were just more chill.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like when we would see a pedestrian walking by, we would all yell "civvy." So if he yelled "civvy," everyone holds their fire, everyone sits down, everyone like motions in a non-threatening way.
Yeah.
Like the game stops, and we wait for them to completely clear, and then once they leave the property, we'll all echo "clear, clear, clear," right? And then we
Continue the game.
on. Yeah. But yeah, there were several times when people did call the police on us. It happened several times actually. And when the police would run by, we would yell, "Hey, police, police!" So we would put all our guns down, like we would make sure we're not holding the gun.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll just be standing there, again, as non-threatening as possible. The cops would come like, "Hey, like, yeah, we know you guys are doing this. Someone just called us, so we have to show up, but just stay safe." And
I'm imagining this
Yeah.
in my head, like, especially with today's climate, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm imagining just a cop pulls up and just sees a bunch of these kids with, like, again, because guys didn't have the
Yeah.
orange tips on.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds nice. But again, it's a different time.
Yeah.
And you guys had made sure that you guys called the police beforehand.
Yeah.
You guys literally did everything right, honestly, it sounds like.
Yeah, and there were a few times when the police did show up and like they did draw their guns on us, but it was like as a joke. Like no. I happened to not be there that particular weekend, but the story was that the cops came over and I mean they're like smiling and laughing.
Oh.
So they pulled the guns. Like, okay, we win, because they knew that we were there, and basically the reason why they did that or they came up to us is because they were like, oh, like we actually do canine training.
Mm.
We do canine training on this day, so like, sorry, we have to use this property.
Oh,
so,
I'm assuming
So after that, we're just like, okay, well, like, what can we do, right? So
Yeah.
you just unpack it and leave. But yeah, eventually that that area got shut down because, again, the times have kind of changed. Like, we've had some really bad experiences with some bad apples. Like, this was a very exclusive invite only. Like, we'd have to vet someone.
Was this like in person, or was this like through social media that you guys found?
Both,
Okay.
yeah, both. Yeah, but there were some really bad apples that kind of ruined it for us. Like, we had this one guy, he lived very close by to the field, so he would walk to the field. But in his absolute genius, in his wisdom, he decided that it would be a fantastic idea for him to walk from his house all geared up with this gun with no gun bag, to the airsoft field. And guess what happened? Yeah, the police got called. Yeah, and because he was openly carrying an airsoft gun, which did not have an orange tip, with all his gear, like he got put in handcuffs, and it was like a whole mess.
I don't even blame the law enforcement for doing that, honestly. That's such a dumb idea.
Absolutely not. But obviously thankfully he didn't go to jail. He did not go to jail.
Okay.
Yeah, they were able to sort things out. And they're like, okay, dude, like, you can't be walking around in public like this.
Freaking airsoft gun, especially with no orange tip. Everyone's gonna think that that's a real gun.
Yeah, but I remember starting from that point on, the police became less understanding with this because we looked bad. We looked stupid, right? Like, that one action for the one bad apple, it made all of us look terrible. Like, it made all of us look like we were irresponsible.
Yeah.
And we were being reckless. So eventually they became less and less understanding about us playing there, and eventually they were just saying, yeah, you guys can't play there anymore. So there's nothing we can do. But we had a second option. We had another interesting.
There's still hope.
No, there was another place that we ended up playing at for a while. With the proper notice.
Okay.
So this second location, I guess you would say, this is crazy. It's a crazy story. You would not believe this.
Okay.
The field is literally, this private area we played at was literally 10 minutes away from the storefront here at GI.
Is it like private property, like someone owns it, or was it just like underdeveloped land that no one owns?
I don't think it was particularly owned by anybody.
Okay.
It was a lot. It was next to this other lot where new houses were being built.
Okay.
So in order to get into this area, there was like this little like gravel area on one side of the street where it is it's like all gravel. Like, I can't say it's a parking lot for sure because there's no parking space for gravel, but it's kind of like fenced off and you can enter into it, so you would have to park there. You would have to grab all your gear and your guns, obviously in a gun bag.
Yes.
And you'd have to jaywalk across the street. And then once you get across the street, there was like this big ravine ditch. And in that ditch would be our private airsoft field. And then once you cross this, there's this huge like hill slope. On the very top on the other side is another fenced off area. That's where houses were being built.
Gotcha.
So in that space, we would call it Site C. I don't know why, like that's just what we called it. That's where we would play. And actually some players actually brought like pieces of like wood and like
to like help
and
build
tires,
barriers
and then they would build barriers, and that's what we would play. So we would gear up, like, again, completely away from public view because this was in a busy street actually, but because we went down into this ravine, like there's no way a passerby would see us.
Yeah.
So we played there for a while, and then the way that we found out all this place is actually again through our my friend Taylor.
He just always knows the spot.
Yeah, he just knew a spot, and people were already playing there. And apparently, like, he was talking to the guys, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah." Like, it's completely legal. Like, everyone knows. And so we started playing there. And again, this happened when I was not there.
Yeah.
It was a weekend that I was not playing, but apparently, LA Sheriff's Department showed up, and they're like, "What are you guys doing?"
Oh no!
Like, we told you guys can't play here. And so, thankfully, no one got put in handcuffs. Nobody went to jail, but obviously we got kicked out.
Of course, yeah.
And so me and Taylor, we were pissed because we were like, dude, like, you told us.
You said that this was and everyone knew.
Yeah, and then everyone's like, well, so after that, somehow Taylor got in contact with the LA Sheriff's Department, and he got in contact with the sheriff, and he said, hey, like, we're airsofters. We just wanted to, like, play airsoft, like, in this area. It's completely away from, from view or whatever, and we come here on Saturdays. And surprisingly, the sheriff was very understanding. He's like, oh, awesome, yeah, cool. Like, just make sure to call us every time you decide to play.
Okay.
So every weekend, because at this point Taylor was playing airsoft every weekend.
Yeah.
I unfortunately was not able to do that.
That's a bit of a drive too.
Not that bit of a drive.
For a kid.
No, I wasn't a kid. Like this was
Oh,
this
wait.
was post high school. Yeah, this was.
Oh,
we were all
okay,
driving.
okay.
Yeah, we were all driving, and yeah, because our tree farm, the tree farm area, that got shut down right after we graduated high school.
Got it.
So this is post high school. It's like when I was getting into college and stuff, and you know I was busy. I was working and doing other things, so I wasn't able to play every week. But Taylor, he would, every weekend, every Saturday, he would call the sheriff's office and be like, "Hey, we're playing airsoft at this area." And then they'll be like, "Okay, cool. Like you know, we'll let all our guys on patrol know." Okay, so that went without issue for like I would say like almost a year.
Oh, okay. That's
Almost
a pretty long
yeah,
run
yeah.
time.
So we would play. So we migrated our player base to that area. So you know eventually the bad apples, they kind of like we kind of stopped hanging out with them, stopped inviting them to play.
Yeah, no, you got to keep it a good reputation.
So we had to weed the garden, so to speak. And it was good for a year, and then that sheriff retired.
Oh no.
That we were in contact with. So he retired, and the new sheriff, the acting sheriff, was not so understanding. It was like, hey, you guys can't do this. And so we're like, hey, what can we do? It's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can't fight it.
Yeah. I was like, okay then. So we couldn't play there for a while. I don't know what happened. I remember there was a period of time when people did come back there, and it was really bad. Like it was.
I can imagine like if you guys were told not to and people were still going, I'm sure some of them got in trouble.
Yeah, so I don't think Taylor went, but just from what we heard through like mutual friends, like some people kept playing there even after the fact, and yeah, like it did not end well for them. Again, thankfully nobody went to jail. Yeah. But again, you know, they got kicked off like by a bunch of angry cops.
By the way, like at the end of the day, like we were saying, like not like no one went to jail. That's like sheer luck that a lot of these people aren't going to jail, because that is very much a possibility that you could. I mean, no one wants to go ahead and what are you gonna do? Like arrest them for like airsofting? Yeah, but you know, if it's a problem they keep telling you not to do it and you keep doing it, you could very well end up in handcuffs.
Yeah.
That is a possibility.
Yeah. So again, yeah, very fortunate that throughout this entire time nobody went to jail. Yeah. So that happened, and then there was one more private field.
Before we get into that, guys, I want to go and let you guys know that there are some promo codes going on right now. Make sure to go ahead and use coupon code 20, spelled 20TH, for 10% off your entire order. As long as it's not a shocker deal, you can go ahead and apply it towards anything discounted, and it will give you double savings. Use coupon code GEAR, spelled GEAR, for up to 20% off all tactical gear orders. That one cannot stack. Again, any tactical gear, whether it be plate carriers, chest rigs, clothing, whatever it may be. Also, use coupon code 20BD for any accessories, for 20% off accessories. Be pack boxes, flashlights, lasers, vertical grips, whatever it may be. Make sure to go ahead and check out and use those coupon codes. Make sure to go ahead and get the best savings possible with Airsoft GI. All right, continue.
So there was one last field.
Oh no. I feel like each time it just gets slightly worse than the last one.
No, this one's not too bad.
Oh, okay.
So they may or may not still be running games there to this day.
All right.
I don't know, but it was all the way in Hesperia. Now, if you guys don't know, if you guys aren't local to the Southern California area, Hesperia is basically like the high desert area. So for where we live, it's gonna be about almost a 3-hour drive.
3 hour.
Almost a 3-hour drive out there, depending on traffic. Usually there is a lot of traffic on the freeway. And these guys are literally just playing straight out, just middle of the desert, like middle of nowhere. So there's nothing, there's nothing to worry about. As far as like the law enforcement, because you're literally, again, middle of nowhere. So this field was found again by my friend and head tech Taylor. Okay, so he is very involved in a lot of like online airsoft communities, and he came up to me one day. I was like, yo, Boaz, I found this field. We can play at this field again. And it's like, it's like on the desert. It's like, it's pretty open though. Not a lot of like man-made cover. So like you have to use bushes and stuff and hills and stuff. But it's sick. We can still play for free. Okay. And I was like, okay, cool. And so he found a group of guys that play at this area. So like they give you like a GPS like coordinate basically where they meet up. Oh. Yeah.
That's how you know it's in the middle of nowhere. There's like no landmarks.
There's no address.
No address. Yeah. You literally gotta go here. Latitude, longitude, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a pin on Google.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So we ended up going there, and for the most part, it was pretty fun. Like there were a few amount of guys that ended up playing there, and you know we did all sorts of different game scenarios, and like some players would volunteer as refs. You know, It was interesting because the way that they set it up which I thought was cool, was it was like team on team on team on team.
So
That makes
4
sense.
teams?
So you're not playing like a 4-team free for all. Although we have done that, it was more like, okay, like this area of land is gonna be like one map. This area of land is another.
Separate games
Yeah,
going
so you got separate games going on, and it was pretty interesting. You know, people will volunteer to use their vehicles. You know, so we can do like cool like convoy missions and stuff.
How did that work though? Was there even cover though at the? I think again, I'm kind of
there's like shrubbery.
But that's about it.
Dead trees, yeah, and that's about it. So a lot of times you'd have to end up like going prone. You know, I think someone dug like a tiny like little trench system too, which is kind of cool. Again, yeah, we had like I was there once, and the one time me and Taylor were there, it was fun for the most part. But eventually, like I don't know, things got weird. Like I got kind of salty back in the day because freaking this guy, like we're playing this convoy mission. And eventually, like the people that were volunteering their cars were getting really scared because, like, you know, too many people were shooting the cars and stuff. And like they had like this fake like Nerf football launching like RPG thing that someone made at home, and like and thunder bees that we were throwing at people and like at the vehicles, and they were getting scared that it was gonna damage your vehicle. So the refs, instead of stopping the game, they're like, oh, just like you can't disable the vehicles anymore. And so they just ended up steamrolling us, and this guy in a Jeep, he drove into like our spawn and started like mag dumping us. And I was like, at that point, I was like really mad. And I was like, what the hell, man?
I mean, mag dumping no matter where you go.
I was a lot more vindictive back in the day. I was a bit more
pop his tires?
mean spirited. No, he was driving an open top Jeep. So I grabbed my Stoner LMG and I literally just laid fire into him for like 10 seconds, like straight. Just, he was flopping like a fish, like he was hurting, like I was out for blood, and so
yeah, it was a little
very toxic. Yeah, I mean, you know, like in my mind at the time, I was like, oh well, he drove into my spawn. He's ruining the game on purpose. Like, he knows he can't do this.
Yeah.
He knows that we can't shoot back at him. We can't shoot the drivers for safety, you know. And here he is, like mag dumping us with his gun, like while he's in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Like I was like pretty upset by that, and he was like laughing about it too. So you know, I mag dumped him, and then after that, like it devolved into this whole like screaming match, and like it was bad, and then everyone left home really angry. So after that day, me and Taylor never went back. Again, this is very toxic on my end.
Yeah, don't do this.
I would never do this. I would never do that ever again. Like that.
We at Airsoft, again, encourage you guys, if you guys do encounter someone like that, that's just intentionally breaking the game, just being an asshole, tell the ref if that's possible, if that's applicable in your situation, or just leave.
Yeah, I mean, if that happened, if I would have done that over again, I would have just not respawned. I would have just died and been like, oh, he's spawn camping, and I'm just not going to spawn.
Yeah.
You know,
don't play at that point.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit out until the game's over and then talk to the player referees after the fact. But yeah, so that's pretty much sums up all my experiences playing Airsoft, like not at a dedicated Airsoft field. Like every time we went camping, we would play growing up as a kid. Again, middle of nowhere camping. I'm not talking about like
national parks or anything.
Yeah, national park or anything like that. Do not do it there.
Yeah.
Or state park or anything. Like secluded area camping, we would play. I would play at our tree farm next to my high school. I would play at this other abandoned lot, and then I played at the middle of the desert. So those are my experiences playing at a private area. But when it's done correctly, when it's done right, again, every time that we were able to play on these pieces of property, we had to let law enforcement know before we played.
Well, I mean, like, but that in itself too, like being able to have that open. I mean, yes, we do live in a metropolitan area, so we do have fields too that we're operating at the time. But I feel like for a lot of people that were just getting into it, right, especially if you like met them in person, that's through word of mouth. That's a good way to go ahead and get more people involved in the hobby as well and start indoctrinating them into Airsoft, right? Because you guys did say that you guys got like people who were asking to play.
Yeah, but they were already players. So the biggest attraction to a private field is you get to play for free.
Okay.
Right? There's no cost for entry, which for me at the time, you know, like I wasn't making a lot of money. Like I didn't have a ton of disposable income.
Sure.
Know? So whatever money that I would normally spend at an airsoft field, that's money that I can use to, I don't know, gas, food, or buying more airsoft stuff, right?
Or gear.
Or gear, right? So that was the added benefit, is that you had to play for free. You know, the fields are not like mapped out.
Did you ever get any
Right.
players that were like completely bright, like absolute noobs at everything?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we had this married couple actually come out and play with us regularly.
Huh.
And they got into airsoft that way, yeah. So they ended up buying 2 Lancer Tactical Gen 1s.
Mhm.
The wife had this like ride shield super broken, but we let her use it anyway because she was the only like woman or female like at the field at the time, you know. And then her husband just used paintball mask and a high cap and a Lancer Tactical Gen 1, and they were and that's how they played. Yeah.
Okay, so because you guys were based, there's no like official ref, right? You guys are all just like rotating refs out. It's all volunteer based. What sort of game modes? I mean, we're gonna develop more into the actual games themselves. What sort of game modes did you guys have when you were doing this?
Well, I mean, honestly, the easiest thing to play is just single elimination.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so single elimination meaning that no respawns.
Mhm.
You just, once you're out, you're out. I mean, the games go by fast because the groups are small, right? We did that. Another crazy game mode that we would play, especially if there's a decent amount of cover, is Manhunt. Everyone against one person. It's very interesting, yeah.
How long those games last?
They can last for a while because eventually you're just having a bunch of people just look for this guy who's hiding, right? And then he can pop out and shoot you anywhere. What was crazy is it was a pretty 50-50 split between who won and who lost,
Okay.
which was pretty interesting. What's another good game mode that we played? We played VIP escort. So one person would be a VIP. All they would have is like a pistol, sometimes no gun at all, and they would have to be like ambush or like you have to get them across the field, right?
Yeah.
And then the defending team would be setting up beforehand, and they'd all be like hiding or in cover, like in position, and they'd have to try to kill the VIP. What else did we play? We played one of my favorites was something called Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
Where basically like
Was it like
at
the
the-
Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart scenario
Yeah.
where you have to defend like a crash site?
Yeah.
Okay.
So back in the day we had at the tree farm we had like heavy machinery that was just like left behind.
Yeah.
And so like we would use that as like the crash site as like the Black Hawk.
Yeah.
And then me and one, or not me, but 2 people, we basically just be like defending it as long as possible. And the enemies, they will just have unlimited respawns. And and then we would just play. I mean, it's a losing game.
Yeah.
Right. So eventually
It's gonna be a matter of just when you lose.
yeah, but I mean, it's just cool. Just be like, oh, like it's just the 2 of us. We have to make a last stand type of deal. And then we had like a bigger version of that where it's like attack and defend type of deal,
Mhm.
where I think we would allow each other to medic each other like with the 10 Mississippi count or whatever. So one team would have that, other team would have unlimited respawns, and then you basically just see like how long you can hold out. So you just have to get kind of creative with it. Like none of us really enjoyed like the tactical egg hunt. We're like, oh, find this bomb, and like we weren't really super into that. We just wanted to get just like fast, good games that we could just play like multiple times and just be done with it.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that totally makes sense. Would you guys advertise for? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but how would you guys advertise yourselves or like try to get more players in? Like, I know you did say that you did use a little bit of social media. What, like forums or something on like Reddit or?
So we used to have a Facebook page, and again, it was a private group, invite only. So people that we would know in our personal lives that either wanted to get into airsoft or we knew like friends who do airsoft already, right? We would invite them in. I brought in a few people. In my high school days, I did bring a few people on to play who are already airsofting. One friend who wanted to get into airsoft, I invited, and then I think the rest was like from like Taylor or some other people. Like I don't know where they came from. I just knew that they were vetted.
Gotcha.
So I don't know how, like, if you're still in school, if you're still in high school, or if you're in college or whatever, you can always make an interest group, right? You can always make like an airsoft group, or a club, or like or if you're in college, so you can just make a club, and you could advertise that way. And at the end of the day, like if you just have a group of friends that want to airsoft, like eventually you'll find people like you'll find people who want airsoft.
Yeah.
You'll find people that do play airsoft. And
Odds are people are like there's way more people than you think that
Yeah.
are going to have similar interests.
Yeah.
To you. I would have loved, honestly, in college if there was an airsoft like club or an airsoft group that or even in high school too. That would have been amazing. I don't know if that would pass now. I mean, maybe it could. I have seen that there are like some high schools that have like paintball clubs.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
I would love to see that for airsoft.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's more important when you do something like this, you want to find a good quality of player rather than quantity, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So like in our private groups, normally our turnout would be like 6 people, right? So it'll be like a 3v3.
Mhm.
And honestly, even then, it was still fun because, again, the quality of player was better, right? Like if we had like 10 to 12 players, like in a day, like we think that's like a huge success, you know? For us to do a 5v5 or 6v6, like that's a really good day. But again, like we never had fights about like who hit who or you're cheating, I'm cheating, no, you're cheating or whatever. Like, hey, like stop shooting me or whatever. Like I'm hit already or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like that. Like it was all, everyone was on the same page. Like, hey, like it's a privilege for us to play here in this area. So like let's make this a good time for everybody. And so those are the people that we kept around. The people that we brought on and realized we're not a good fit, like we did not invite them anymore.
Mhm.
You know, and it came to a certain point where we're like, okay, like you're banned. Like we're not gonna let you play here. You know, so if you come back again, like we'll call the cops. You know,
No, it's interesting.
So-
I always enjoy hearing like stories of like, especially when it comes to like small interest groups, when they're able to go ahead and basically start their own
Yeah.
impromptu airsoft
Yeah.
field. Because that sort of like genesis of like, again, how TFA was starting
Yeah.
and in its heyday, right?
Yeah.
That is no joke, actually, how airsoft even started, even especially in SoCal,
Yeah.
right? Where it was literally guys playing out in like the riverbed,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe under overpasses,
Yeah.
where it was just, you didn't see a whole lot of cops there. There was no a whole lot of like public activity. So it was literally just seeing a bunch of guys there just playing. If you were looking for it, guys doing like dirt bikes, guys playing with like big skateboarding, right? Or maybe even just doing paintball. And then of course that transitioned over into airsoft. I think that's how some actual fields even started themselves before they were taken down, obviously.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you guys want to start something like this on your own, again, in a not urban area, I would highly discourage you do this in today's social climate. If you live near a city, do not do this.
Specifically if you live in the
city.
city.
But if you're more in the countryside, in a less urban area, I would say all it takes is, again, a piece of property and 2 people. That's all you need to start with, right? So you have 2 people. You guys don't need to do a 1v1 or whatever, but the way you grow interest is, right? Like you will know people and I will know people.
Yeah.
Right. So eventually, like within my friend group, or people, whether those my classmates back in high school or in college, or just people that happen to walk by.
You ever get any of the guys from the tennis club or the tennis team?
When I used to play tennis, no, I did not. But that's because I wasn't actively recruiting people.
Gotcha.
We were very happy with the group that we already had.
Okay.
But I mean, generally, you'll hear it. You'll hear people talk about like, they'll be like, oh yeah, like I want to try airsoft.
Mhm.
If you hear that, you're like, hey, you want to play airsoft? You know, like that's literally how I got one of my buddies into airsoft. Right? It's like, oh, like for birthday, I want to try going airsofting. And I was like, oh, cool.
That's
So-
Justin I met.
Yeah,
Our
yeah,
whole team, like
yeah.
I'd heard him talking to one of our other teammates who did airsoft
Yeah.
as well, and both Nick, my buddy Nick at the time, that when we started airsoft, we literally heard them like over hearing that we're like, yo, you guys play airsoft? We were literally in the middle of practice, and we started going from there.
Yeah. I mean that's kind of how it starts, right? Is like if you have a friend that is curious about the hobby,
Mhm.
and if you guys want to get into it together, like that's what I did, right? And like I said, like I met one of my best friends ever, that also that also we both ended up working at Airsoft GI.
Yeah.
Right? It's because I wore an Airsoft GI shirt at school, Like
This is a
that's-
message. If you have airsoft like swag, just wear it out in public. Even if people keep asking you, what does that shirt mean? Just do it. You're going to make a ton of friends.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the goal with some of our male gang stuff.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, if you know, you know type of deal.
Mhm.
So instead of explicitly saying the word airsoft, like we wanted to make like merch or clothing that you could just wear casually, like anywhere you go.
Mhm.
But then like if you knew what it was, then you know.
You're
right?
in the know.
Yeah. They're like, oh shoot,
He's a male gang member.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and then you can get a conversation started, and you guys can enjoy the hobby or celebrate the hobby together.
Now that was your thing, that you really wanted to make sure that you vetted, and it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You're in a situation where you're very privileged to play in this one section. It's because you guys technically were in a or at least near a metropolitan area.
Yeah.
What would you say then for maybe someone who does live in the countryside, has an opportunity to go ahead and do this, start their own impromptu field, but is actively looking to go ahead and try to recruit members?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like all you can do is just maybe you can make a Facebook group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like I would highly recommend not recruiting people just online. I think that's the riskiest.
Okay.
That's how you attract the lowest common denominator, in my opinion, because you don't know these people.
True.
Right. So again, you have to reach out in your social circle, whether it's your school, your friend group, right? Whether it's like your workplace, right? Whether it is your like if you're involved in any other kind of social sphere, like for me growing up, like, you know, church was a thing, right? Like me and my church friends, like we would play airsoft, like that's what we would do, you know? So you have to utilize your social circle, because when you know someone, you understand what their character is, right? Like who are these people, right? What are these people like? And
I guess the only thing I'm kind of,
you've already vetted them.
they kind of like, I'm kind of like on the fence about that kind of mentality, is just because, again, how is that any different from, like, say, just a regular field, right? Because, like, again, you could be playing with absolute strangers, right? And you're all just agreeing to be there to follow these rules. I kind of feel the same way, which I don't mind having to, like, send an invite to people. Now, obviously, I would want to know them a little bit ideally, but if our goal is to grow the hobby,
well, it's rural, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you live in a rural area, you're not gonna have the same amount of reach, I guess you would say, like if you were living in an urban area.
It's true.
This is why it's different. This is why I'm saying, like, it makes more sense for you to reach out to just your local community already. Mm-hmm. So all I'm saying is if you have enough dedication and patience, you can grow, right? You can grow your player count like over time by recruiting people that you know first, and you know their character, you know what kind of player they are, right? If they're decent folks, those guys will then talk to their friends and their family members, right? Does that make sense?
No.
It kind of spider webs out.
No, I get the idea behind it. I mean, we have the same mentality too when it comes to, because we're both on TFA, we're both on this team, right? Like that's the same mentality we have when it comes to.
Don't want to cut you off. Well, every time we mention TFA, he's referring to the original tree farm field that we used to play. So the team that he's referring to, like our in-store team, like not official, but just like when we just play, when we want to just enjoy the hobby, personally, not professionally.
Outside of work.
Yeah, outside of work. Yeah, TFA, it used to stand for Tree Farm Airsoft, because it was a group of people, dedicated people, that we would play together at the original Tree Farm location when we were in high school, and then we ended up recruiting Isaiah Slater into the team. Now it stands for something else, so whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway,
different thing. But no, when we recruit people onto our team too, we always try to we're not even looking for skill. We don't care how good of a player you are. We're looking for, like, again, the quality of player that you are, right? That at the end of the day is going to be the biggest. So I understand that. And I guess you're right, like, because we are in a countryside, it's, again, you're not going to have the same reach as, say, someone who lives in the middle of downtown.
Yeah. So again, like at the end of the day, like you have to be interested in airsoft, right? You can't just like go to your younger sister, hey, you're gonna play airsoft with me later. It's not gonna work, you know? Like you're not gonna be able to, like,
come on, grandma, you can cover fire for me.
Yeah. Like it's not gonna work, right? So at the end of the day, like it has to start with your local community, and like that's how all these things start. Like if you, for example, let's say you make a Facebook page, like, and you live in a more rural area, you're not going to get a lot of reach.
That's
right?
true.
There's not a lot of people that live there, not a lot of people that are going to be that active on Facebook to specifically look for an airsoft thing. Right?
Granted, I would say that it still helps to have that, just so you have like a point of reference online, right? Maybe if you want to give information or instructions on how to actually show up to this field, if you do end up making it like a page, right? That maybe if it's private. Right, you send someone the invite on like Facebook or something if they do eventually find you. But yeah, it's not gonna have a mass reach.
Yeah, but again, so how do I explain it? So like it's important that it's important that we emphasize that point where like it is a person to person like social aspect to, you know, growing your field. Like it's like there's no formula for this.
There's no way to do it.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, like even if, let's say, like you're eating at your like local pizza shop, or you're eating at your local restaurant, you just hear someone talk about airsoft. Oh yeah, like, you know, airsoft. Like you should approach them. You should approach them like, hey, like I heard you talking about airsoft, right? Like this has happened to me like a million times. Like one time, like I was coming home from work when I was in college, working a graveyard shift. You know, coming home like 3 a.m, getting gas at a local gas station, and I was wearing a Slayer t-shirt. This dude pulled up next to me, yo, Slayer, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, dude. And he was like, yo, I'm in a band, I'm playing a show, over here at this time, whatever. I'm like, oh, sweet. And then, I marked on my calendar. I was like, oh yeah, like, do you have a card or anything? He gave me a card for his band. I ended up watching, his show.
That's pretty cool.
And then one thing that happened really recently actually is I was eating In-N-Out.
Yeah.
And local California West Coast hamburger chain, by the way. But
they didn't know.
Yeah, it just you didn't know what In-N-Out is, okay? But I was waiting for my food, and I see these people eating on a table. There's one guy who's wearing a jacket, and it says Panavision. Now, if you guys don't know what Panavision is, they are the premier rental house for the film industry. They rent camera equipment. They manufacture some of the best camera technology in the world, but not to get too into it. But he was wearing, a name brand, jacket. And I was like, I literally just went up to him. I was like, hey, are you working in the film industry? And we started a conversation, and then we ended up trading contact information. I was like, oh yeah, like let's link up, let's work together, And so like that's just how you network. Like that's sometimes you gotta do stuff like that in order for things to happen, like
in order for things to grow.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, again, I think it's because we are in an urban area, the culture is different.
Yeah.
Right? Like the notion of me approaching someone like a complete stranger and talking to them is kind of like, it's kind of weird.
I know there are a lot of people, like, especially that have spent their whole lives in an urban setting, definitely take like a more laid back approach when it comes to like socializing with people. And maybe that is just a cultural thing, right? Like again, if someone were to approach me, I'm not gonna lie, even though I like to think of myself as a mostly sociable person, I would be a little kind of taken back by that, by like someone just immediately approaching like, oh, I don't know you, who are you?
But if you do have a lot of social anxiety, which is a problem common in a lot of city areas, and if you still have that kind of social anxiety but you don't live in a city, honestly, like you kind of have to exercise that level of like
socialization,
being forward, right? Like you have to, like if that's a goal that you want to do, like if you want Airsoft to become more popular in your area, if you want that to become a thing,
you're gonna have to put yourself out there.
You have to do it. Like there's no way around it, because if you don't end up approaching strangers, if you don't end up like talking to people that like, let's say like you eavesdrop on a conversation, you hear the word Airsoft, if you don't talk to these people, you're never going to be able to play with them. You're never going to be able to grow a community in your local area. It's never going to happen. You have to do it.
You have to be at the forefront of that conversation and start getting that word out there. If you're not going to be willing to put yourself out there, then everything that you want to go ahead and promote is not going to get out there either.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like the biggest thing, right? If we had to go ahead and sum it all up, so like there are many different tactics that you can use, especially if you're not living in a metropolitan area, as to how to get Airsoft popular in your area and to help Airsoft grow and expand and keep thriving. You're gonna have to just start putting yourself out there. I think that's gonna be what it ultimately boils down to.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's tough as is. Like if you don't live, in your city, like
it's already gonna be hard enough as is.
I mean, there's pros and cons, right? The pros is if it works, you get to play Airsoft for free.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a big.
You don't have to spend $30 to $50, every time you play. Like you play for free.
Yeah.
But the con is, there's less people. There might be less people for you to play with. So, you gotta do the legwork and you gotta do it.
And progress is going to be very, very slow. Like I'm imagining, like because I know you joined like Tree Farm Airsoft like group. You joined that when it was already kind of established, right? You were already there.
Yeah.
It had already been a thing. So starting it yourself is going to take even longer. However, the upside, again, like Boa says, is one, you're going to be able to play for free, but you're going to be able to go ahead and build a community in that area, and slowly but surely, that's how you can get Airsoft, like legit fields started. You very well might be the next entrepreneur for Airsoft in getting a field started in your area, right? That's literally how it started in SoCal.
Yeah. So the final thing I like to say though is you have to make sure you are a good quality player.
Yes.
Right. So I know it's popular in Airsoft to like make memes and jokes about like Mag dumped the rentals and pwn the nudes or whatever.
We at GI hate that.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
I absolutely I detest it, and the reason why is because it becomes a barrier to entry into the hobby. Like I do believe in gatekeeping, but we're gatekeeping the wrong way, if that makes sense. So
no, I get it.
Yeah. So make sure you are a good quality player. Like if you're the type of guy that has poor emotional regulation, like if you have a hard time controlling your emotions and you get angry really easily, it's hard for you to like shut your mouth. You need to shut your mouth. Like
or just think before you act.
Yeah, I would recommend you work on that before you start your community, because how you are as a player will influence what the culture would be, like when you start. So, I mean, I don't want to get too personal, philosophical. Like I
That's
believe,
okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I believe like as a man, as a guy, like it is imperative that you learn to control your emotions. You learn how to be in control, and you know how to stay calm and not let your emotions control you. Okay, so that's a little bit of stoicism, but
No, it makes sense
Yeah.
in that situation. If you are going to be a spokesperson for a community
Yeah.
or for a hobby or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, you're going to be a spokesperson of any type, and you're trying to innovate and bring that into an area where that's not already
Yeah.
a thing, then you need to make sure that you put your best foot forward and be a face, essentially.
Yeah, so because you are going to represent Airsoft, right, in your local community. And if you cannot be a good example, to say it very bluntly, it might not be a good idea for you to start an Airsoft.
Yeah.
You're probably better off just, with a bunch of friends.
You could probably
shooting
get
cans. Shooting cans in the backyard.
you can get it started for sure, but your level
Yeah.
of success is ultimately going to depend on that as well.
So, what does that mean? It means, not complaining about, oh, I shot you, no, you shot me, and argue about who got shot.
Don't be salty.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Not like overshooting somebody, oh, like screw you, and and just
Don't be toxic.
Yeah, mag dumping people, right? And also, not getting, this is the hardest part, not getting upset when someone else doesn't call their heads or when someone else mag dumps you.
Be the better person. That's essentially what it's
so
gonna come down.
not flying off the handle. Yeah, it sucks. It does piss me off when some speedy boy rounds a corner and like.
Why do you guys say Speedy Boy?
No, I'm saying this personal experience. Some person rounds a corner and dumps 20 rounds, point blank at me. Yeah, it sucks. It happens and it absolutely sucks. But at the end of the day, right? For me, the way I would I handle those situations, literally, I'll just come up there and just be like, hey, like I know you probably didn't mean it. Give them the benefit of the doubt, right? I know you didn't mean it, but like you shot me like crazy, and like honestly, like it hurt, dude. It hurt a lot, man. Like it was a little excessive, And then if they're gonna be like a prick about it, be like, oh, well, you signed a waiver, then I'm like, okay, and then I'll just talk to the rep. But
No,
most of that, but most of that, if you approach someone genuinely, right, when you're upset and be like, hey man, like this and this happened, it just made me feel really upset, like I know you didn't mean to like piss me off or whatever, or be a dick, but this happened, could you be a little more mindful next time? And most of the time, most people will be like, oh shoot, my bad, like honestly, like I was so scared, I just reacted and I just shot you a bunch,
Yeah, there's no need to be
okay,
confrontational really at the end of the day, because if you're gonna end up like coming with that type of energy to someone, it's natural for us as humans, even if you're in the wrong, you're gonna try to defend yourself because again, you just see that as like someone being confrontational.
Yeah, and like we played Airsoft at our local field where like kids like I'm not saying kids. Like 10-year-olds would have birthday parties.
Sometimes.
Yeah, birthday parties. So they have the rental mask and rental gun and stuff. And sometimes I'd have those kids like dead to rights, like of course the temptation is there to like spam, like to watch them squirm. Of course the temptation is there. But I would be courteous and I would either walk up to them, bang them, so they don't even have to get shot in the first place, or like I'd pick an area, like if they're wearing like a thick hoodie or like sometimes they'll give you like a rental vest, I'd shoot them in the vest just once, just once, just so they feel it and they can call that. Why? Because if I hurt them like crazy and I give them a bad time, what's the likelihood of them wanting to come back and play Airsoft?
Yeah, they're not going to want
zero.
They're not going to want that.
Yeah.
And if that's the type of energy you're going to end up bringing to your Airsoft community, that's the type of like play you want at your like impromptu field. Good luck keeping anyone there, like retaining any sort of player.
But you're not. You like the simple truth is you're not.
Yeah.
So again, make sure that if you are going to start a community, make sure first of all you are a good quality player, right? So because you are setting the example of, or you're setting the tone of your local community, so that way when you bring other people in, you become the example, you become the standard. Your behavior is the standard, right? Yeah. So like if you want to play here, if you want to be invited here, this is how you should act, right? And so oftentimes when we would bring new players in, we would actually stop before we go our first game. We'd actually go over a briefing, right? So here's what's acceptable, here's what's not acceptable, right? Here's some safety things that you should do, and here's some things you should not do.
Have a clear rules list of what's allowed, what's accepted, what's not acceptable, and what will ultimately get you kicked out.
Yeah.
You can have it as simplified as possible and have it written down so that everyone can agree to it and always refer to that, so there's no questions in the air about like, oh, what do we do in this situation? No, have it written down so there's no doubts about it.
Or not even written, right? Because this was all transmitted verbally, right? It's like me and Taylor, since we were like the head guys eventually of the field, right? We'd be like, okay, here's a safety brief. Number 1, don't be a dick. Right, you only need to shoot someone 1 to 3 times. Don't if we catch you like shooting someone excessively like that, like we're gonna kick you out. Right. Number 2, right? Make sure to call your hits. If you feel like you got shot, you even don't see someone, you feel like you got shot or whatever, like call yourself out, right? Don't be a dick. And then also conversely, if you're shooting someone and they're not calling their hits, don't automatically think that they're cheating. Okay. Even if they are cheating, do not try to like magnum try to solve the problem on your own, right? Talk to us, right? And we'll go talk to them. Right, and then some other safety things like, you know, if you're not wearing eye protection, if eye protection falls off or whatever, make sure to call blind man. We'll stop the game. If they're police officers, right, make sure to call police. We have to drop our guns. If there are joggers or hikers passing through the area, right, we'll yell civvy so that way the game stops. Right, we lower our guns to make sure that they don't feel threatened. Right.
Yeah.
So these are all things that we straight up every time there is a new member, we go over it. You know, every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but more importantly, if we don't follow those rules, if we don't follow those guidelines, why do they have to follow it, right?
Yeah.
So again, make sure you are the prime example. Make sure you are the good player.
Yeah. Guys, make sure to go ahead and use coupon code 20th for 10% off your entire order. That's 20TH at checkout. Again, even if it's discounted, you should be able to go ahead and use it and get an additional 10% off as long as it's not a shocker deal. Also use coupon code GEAR. Again, that's GEAR for 20% off all tactical gear orders. And also use coupon code 20BD as a birthday. Makes sense. We've been here for 20 years. Make sure to use coupon code 20BD for
20 years?
20 years. Yeah.
Holy crap.
20 BD in order to get 20% off all accessories in stores, optics, flashlights, even BBs and green gas would qualify for that. Make sure to go ahead and use that at checkout for up to 20% off accessories. Guys, this has been another episode of the Range Talk podcast. Thank you both for coming on. Again, I really appreciate it. Thank
you for having me.
I know originally we had Cisco come on, and thank you for coming in and subbing last minute, but that has been another episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one. My name is Isaiah.
And Boaz.
We'll see you guys later. Take it easy, guys.